Charlotte, North Carolina. Normally NASCAR country, but today Red Bull Global Rallycross races on the dirt track at Charlotte as we near the halfway mark in the season. As round 5 of Red Bull Global Rallycross rolls into Charlotte, North Carolina, the drivers face a new challenge.
For me, going to dirt is the guys who want to get loose, hang it out, lay it down, get roosted in the face.
It literally has every different element imaginable in one lap.
I think dirt's way better than pavement.
From the home of American motorsports, this is Red Bull Global Rallycross Charlotte. We've already seen tons of action here at the dirt track at Charlotte as these drivers get ready for round number 5 of this 10-round season. And I can guarantee you, Charlotte is going to be an absolute doozy here today. Hi, everyone. I'm Tess Sewell, along with Townsend Bell, and you heard the drivers talk about it. The difference here in Charlotte is the dirt. 70% of the track is dirt, where only 30% is asphalt. Normally, it's the other way around. And Townsend, this dirt has already been causing a lot of issues for these drivers.
It really has, and it's not like the dirt that we've seen in previous rounds this season. This is North Carolina dirt. There's a heavy clay base there, and what that does is form all kinds of crazy ruts, and it changes every lap. So a driver's ability to adapt to the conditions is going to be the key to victory today, and it caused a whole bunch of drama yesterday in the preliminary rounds. Looking here at Nelson Piquet Jr. right out of practice, gets onto the asphalt that was wet, goes straight into the barrier. A little bit of damage to the left front, talking to his team owner, James Sullivan, about the issues, and he's in a points championship battle at the front. And then Sverre Isaacson gets off of the jump, driver's right, takes out one of our NBC cameras. And then in the lights category, look at the right rear tire. We're seeing Austin Cindric come into this heavily rutted section. Here's Jeff Sykes, that right rear tire de-beating. Lots of issues for every team, both in supercars and lights, with tire de-beating issues because of those ruts.
And a lot of work done on the course from yesterday to today, and certainly after the work was done, didn't look like the drivers were having so many problems. Take a look, though, at our point standing. A 35-point difference between Nelson Piquet and Scott Speed coming into today. And the reason for that, you may remember, going off the air last week from New York, Scott Speed was on the podium. After the race, he was disqualified, and he lost an awful lot of points there. This is what would have happened if Scott Speed had not had the disqualification.
And the penalty was for a really weird situation where his mechanics essentially plugged in a laptop computer during one of the red flag periods, and that's a no-no, not allowed to make any electronic adjustments. So that was the penalty. Harsh for him, but he's going to battle hard to the finish this season.
So no working on the car under the red flag. The third member of our broadcast team, Kristen Kenny, caught up with Scott Speed earlier this morning.
Scott, a disappointing outcome for you last weekend after a costly penalty. How did you end up in that situation?
Well, as it turns out, in the red flag, we pulled our car here where we're standing under the tent, and in the rules, you're supposed to keep it outside of the tent, and we ended up losing all of our points because of that. But we still obviously demonstrated we're fast. We just have had a lot of bad luck lately, and it continues this weekend. We've had so many tires come off the rim here in qualifying and in the heat race. So in a last-ditch effort, I turned to Facebook, and I asked the guys to pick a hair color. They picked green for this weekend, and that has obviously not worked. So we're going to choose drastic measures next week to try to just get this luck turned around. The team's been doing great, though. We got a fast car. We've had a fast car all year. We just should get turned around.
Well, looking ahead, you got to make one heck of a fight out there. It will be a challenge, especially starting from that back row. Guys?
After a great start to the season, Scott Speed and the Andretti guys having a lot of challenges here. What's on tap here today at Red Bull Global Rallycross? We got 2 6-lap heats where the top 3 advance, then a last chance qualifier with 4 spots available into our 10-car, 10-lap final. Well, Townsend, we've talked all about the dirt track here and how different it is. Why don't you give us a little walk around our Charlotte track?
Well, you see here we're at the dirt track in Charlotte, and it starts on the starting grid on the tarmac. Now, They get off the line on asphalt, go through that turn 1 and 2 onto the dirt, which you see in orange, up through turn 2 of the dirt track banking, then through a very tricky section that has a little whoop-de jump before you go uphill outside of the dirt track facility onto the asphalt in white, through into turn 6. Have to really get the car rotated and pointed for the jump out of turn 6, back down inside of the track, and that takes us on a lap. And the Joker, of course, you can use once per race, and it's very, very short. You have to be right on the bumper of the car in front to make a pass through that Joker. That's a lap test here at Charlotte.
We are gridded up and getting ready to go in this first heat here. Take a look at that front row. A lot of heat in row 1.
There is, and how about Brian Deegan, not running the full season, but a dirt expert along with Steve Arpin, and Ken Block, of course, no stranger to going sideways.
But the big story in the back. You got Speed and PK Jr. right next to each other, had a terrible time in qualifying, so they are going to have to fight their way through traffic, and we know how hungry Scott Speed is to get a result here.
So cool to see those two start side by side. Then Emma Gilmore on the last row. Hasn't really shown much so far, but this could be a good weekend for turnaround in the Hyundai for Emma Gilmore. Of course, they're running the beadlock rims.
And the beadlock rims certainly yesterday would have been a very sensible thing to have on the car, but not so many of the cars having troubles once they got this track repaired.
Here we are on board with Nelson Piquet Jr. Now, as much as he's going to be thinking about a win, just like Scott Speed, he's in row 2. They just need to transfer to the final first and foremost, and of course it's top 3 that transfer. So a lot of passing to be done and a little bit of bumping, I'm sure, if they've got a chance to make the final round.
So the start here is on asphalt. You very quickly transition onto dirt. Remember, 70% of this track is on the dirt. And what I would say is even when you come off the dirt, that asphalt has a lot of dust that's blown onto it.
There's no question. Big start there for Ken Block. Gets a good shot up the inside as we see Steve Arpin battle with Deegan. Look at Deegan trying to get to the inside. Now lower here in this corner is a little roller jump. If you stay up high, it's smooth, as you see Deegan barely get air with his left front.
Oh, and Deegan there switching lines, trying to find a little better traction, but certainly an aggressive move from Steve Arpin, pushing Brian Deegan into the outside.
Well, he knew he needed to get up there and stay close to Ken Block, who's been super fast in practice around this track. You see your top 3, your top 4, it looks like all go for the Joker. Speed and PK stay out, go the long way around, so they still have a Joker in the bag.
So Ken Block is leading this race out over Steve Arpin and then Brian Deegan. Good to see Deegan back here. He is used to racing dirt. He's been racing short course off-road trucks. So he, I think, better than maybe anybody, knows how to handle this dirt.
Not only to handle the dirt, but also the roughness of those ruts. You can see him slamming around inside. Their heads are really ping-ponging back and forth off the headrest as we see Ken Block and Steve Arpin work their way to complete another lap. And Speed just took the Joker, so he moves up into 4th. He needs one more spot to transfer. He's working on Brian Deegan on the low line.
So there you see Brian Deegan taking that wide line. He's just trying to find a way that he can work himself around Arpin, but so far Arpin's car very wide all the way around this Charlotte track.
And Deegan's got to be careful. A big over-rotation there leading onto the asphalt. Now they're going to jump back down the hill, and Scott Speed is all over him for that final transfer.
Scott Speed, remember, had that disqualification, so he seems, I would say, extra motivated here this weekend to get a good result, get back on that podium.
Looking back, how about Emma Gilmore holding off Nelson Piquet Jr.? She currently runs in 5th. This is probably the best run we've seen out of her so far this season.
And Piquet yet to take that Joker, so he can duck underneath to try and get that little bit of pace and speed on Scott Speed, but I don't know if it's going to be enough for him to actually make a move because Gilmore was holding him off.
2 laps to go. And again, Scott Speed needs to get past Deegan, but Deegan is closing on Arpin in front of him. He's starting to settle into the groove as that North Carolina dirt gets matted down and the grooves start to form. White flag next time by.
Remember, the top 3 transfer straight into the final, so that is why Scott Speed is pushing so hard. He is in the spot that goes into the last chance qualifier. Deegan has that last transfer spot now.
And look at how quickly this track is drying out. All of a sudden, we start to see some dust form as they come by for the white flag lap. These guys, Arpin, Deegan, Speed, nose to tail.
And again, Speed needs that position or else he's going to have to go to the LCQ.
So Ken Block way out in front. He just has to run a smooth race and he will advance. But this race really second, third, and fourth, Arpin, Deegan, and Scott Speed.
And now the issue Speed's dealing with is visibility, being 4 cars back. It's really hard to see as we see Ken Block come to the line to take the checkered flag for the heat win. Looks like Steve Arpin will be second, and Brian Deegan takes third, holding off Speed and PK as PK spins across the finish line.
PK was just pushing so hard to try and get that result, but it wasn't enough right at the end. So Speed and PK are going to have to go through to that last chance qualifier.
That is going to be a tough way to advance. Your top 2 in the championship do not go through. And it's going to be a battle for them in the LCQ. On board here with Ken Block. What a great run for him.
And again, Ken Block historically has done just awesomely well in these races. A great result in heat number 1 for Block. Can he hold it out and do well in the final? We'll find out when we come back. Looking there, these guys doing a little bit of work once they came off the track, and you know, important to keep these cars in top shape because they know they've got that final to race. And there we see the grid so far for our final. Block, Arpin, and Deegan. You saw them working on Arpin's car there. They are through. They get to sit and rest. No last chance qualifier for them. But again, PK and Speed have to go into that LCQ. That's going to be hard for them. But a great race in that heat for Ken Block. He's down with Kristen Kenny.
Ken, great start out there. It was smooth sailing for you. How does this track suit your driving style?
I mean, my history is all comes from gravel stage rally. So, man, give me more tracks that are all gravel. I absolutely love it. But, you know, the team's been on point since we got here with cars set up, with the changes we've been making and what I've been doing to get great starts. So, really got to give a hat off to my team to give me a great car to go out there and do these starts and get these finishes.
We'll be seeing Ken Block in the final. Guys?
Thanks, Kristen, and certainly he has been doing very well. He's famous for doing well in these heat races and having some challenges at the start of the final. On the grid now for heat number 2, they are getting ready to go. There you're looking at the orange and gray car of Bucky Lasek. And this should be another great race. Well, this track at Charlotte, we've been talking about a lot and how different it is. Well, let's check out how different it is in our GoPro course preview with Nelson Piquet Jr.
Hey guys, this is Nelson Piquet Jr. racing for SH Rallycross. We're here in Charlotte for the 5th race of the Global Rallycross Championship. It's a third gear, depending which car, maybe a second gear. I use third gear. Long left-hander. This is you're reaching about 150 miles an hour, and strong braking over here, car sideways, trying to be as inside as possible. Preparing yourself for the asphalt over here, because you're going to get a lot of grip, probably a very good point to overtake. Back to the jump-in place. And you see there's the left side is the Joker, right side is the normal track, and you're back at the start-finish line over here, guys. Thanks for the ride. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Fantastic lap of the dirt course here. We are getting ready for the second heat. Let's take a look at our Royal Purple starting grid.
And up front, look at Sverre Isaksson and Bucky Lasek, both in Subarus. They've been making a lot of bite on this dirt track. I'm looking for them to have a strong start. Patrick Sandell, your winner from Washington, D.C., inside on the front row.
And then we truck on back to the back row here. And again, having to fight through traffic, Dine Weeman, Tanner Faust. And that is a big surprise because Tanner has looked a lot better since a rough start to the season. Not where either he or Weeman expected to be.
No, and like we saw in the first heat, it's really tough to get by, and the start is critically important, as is visibility, as we're on board with Sverre Isaksson. He had a penalty in one of the preliminary rounds yesterday, had a big wreck there in New York. I think this guy is the epicenter of drama in GRC everywhere we go.
What you've got to say about Sverre Isaksson is he is not afraid to lean on other drivers, and certainly with this dirt configuration, it really plays well for him. He'll take a little extra space if he needs to.
Luckily for his competitors, he's starting on the inside leading to the first corner. Let's watch the lights.
Lights are green. We are racing here in Charlotte. Great start for both Isaksson and Lasik.
And look at Tanner Faust trying to get up the inside. Whoa! And that's Patrick Sandell with a little help from behind from Tanner Faust. Goes through the hydro barriers into what looks to be like a sippy hole. We'll see if a red flag comes out. Almost. There it is.
It's got to be a red flag. Strangely enough, last year in this race here at Charlotte, it was Tanner Faust who managed to come off in that corner. Exactly the same circumstance. This time he just gave a little extra bit of help to Patrick Sandell, so Sandell is parked there.
I think when we see the replay, you're going to see Tanner Faust trying to force his nose up the inside of Sandell. Sandell gets turned innocently, nowhere to go, and just demolishes the hydro barrier.
A lot of damage to the front end there too, and you see that great start from the two Subarus.
Now here comes Tanner, very small gap, barely a gap, and he just gets into the back of Sandell, and Sandell at this point has to lock up.
Just nowhere to go for Patrick Sandell, so he is parked on the side of the course there, and just take a look at that. He's just tagged in the back. And that's what takes him into those hydros. So red flag conditions here. And that is unfortunate because it looked like Sandell was going to squeeze himself through. So we will wait and pull Patrick Sandell out of the center of our track. He is okay. We will return to Red Bull Global Rallycross soon. Welcome back, everyone, to Red Bull Global Rallycross from the dirt track at Charlotte Motor Speedway. You're watching Ken Block's team working on his car. He already won the heat. He's through to the finals. They're just prepping that car and getting it ready to go. The A6 World Series of Beach Volleyball continues on NBC Sports as the best players from around the globe compete on American sand. The A6 World Series of Beach Volleyball tonight on NBCSN and tomorrow on NBC. So Block, he had a great race. He's ready to go in the final, but Patrick Sandell, not quite the same story.
Yeah, it got off to a very tough start as you see Tanner Faust get into the back of Patrick Sandell and then heavily into the hydro barriers, up and over, massive damage to that Cobalt Tools Ford Fiesta. Here we see another angle. I did have a chance, Tess, to talk to Race Control. Their view that Sandell moved over on Faust, thus no penalty called in this instance. But it's tough based on the way we saw it there.
Yeah, we thought maybe Tanner Faust had kind of turned Patrick Sandell a little, but the result is the same. His heat race effectively over. And right now, Kristen Kenny is caught up with Patrick Sandell.
Patrick, that's definitely not the start you want. What happened out there?
No, first of all, the lights, they were stuck in red, and so they never turned like off before the green comes, so everyone was a bit confused. But when we got going, I had my inside line, but then Becky was pushing me from the outside, so I just ended up on the water barrier. So, and then the drive shaft broke in the left front. If it only would have been plastic, we would have continued, but now when the drive shaft is broken, we can't do anything. So,
guys, back to you.
Thanks, Kristen. Well, the guys are going to have to work incredibly hard to get that machine ready to go into the last chance qualifier. But unfortunate, Patrick Sandell really hoping for a good result here.
Yeah, and his sponsor, Lowe's Home Improvement, is based here, so they needed a great day, but that leaves us 5 on the grid here for Heat 2. Having a look at Austin Dine in the Barracuda car. Johnny Wieman had a great start before the red flag came out, and of course there's a big gap that Patrick Sandell used to fill there on the front row as we're on board with Sverre Isaksson.
So the question is whether Wieman or Faust is going to try and dive into that gap between Isaksson and Bucky Lasik, but we saw the Subarus have just a great launch on that last start.
Lights out, green, here we go. Isaksson with another great start. Further back, and look at, this time it's Faust into the hydro barrier. Huge damage to the right front.
Well, Faust is still going. We saw that Austin Dine went off the track a little bit on the right. He came back, and then Faust claims those hydro barriers. The barriers are in the middle of the track, so we'll have to see what happens, whether we'll be red flagged again.
But right now we're still green as we see Isaksson, Wieman, Lasik coming off the jump down the hill, and Wieman all over the back of Isaksson as they come to complete that first lap. Both of them take the Joker.
And they're going to get a big surprise. surprise coming around the corner here. That big white hydro barrier in the middle of the course. Sverre Isaksson claims it. But look at Johnny Weeman go. He is a man possessed.
You have to love GRC. A little bit of a plastic hydro barrier in the way, no big deal. Who cares if it's big as a refrigerator? Let's stay green, let's go racing.
And the thing about these cars, a little bit of body damage, that doesn't matter. You heard Patrick Sandell say, when you break something major, then obviously you're going to the back. You just brush some plastic off, that's no problem. Sverre Isaksson trying to hold off the charge of Johnny Weeman.
And look at Isaksson taking it very conservatively this lap. Where the debris was, Austin Dine now having a problem. He is pulled off course. As we see, Weeman has gone to the lead. Weeman got Isaksson, and now we're going red.
Well, Austin Dine was parked right across the entry back onto the dirt, so unfortunately there was absolutely no way they were going to be able to race past him. A hydro barrier is one thing, but trying to push Austin's machine out of the way, that wouldn't have ended up quite as good.
No, it's a very narrow gap as you come back outside the track, jumping downhill, so they had to stop the race in order to clear that car.
So we are red flagged once again here at Charlotte. We will get the heat restarted from Red Bull Global Rallycross when we return. Welcome back, Red Bull Global Rallycross. You see the Cobalt Tools team of Patrick Sandell working hard on that machine to get it into the last chance qualifier. He was the reason for the first of our 2 red flags, and they are certainly fighting hard. But there was a second red flag just a moment ago.
And there you see some of the leftover debris from the wreck that was earlier. We were on board with Isaksson, and he just bunny hops the hydro barrier in the middle of the track. And then here's Austin Dine getting turned, it looked like, by none other than Tanner Faust, who's been in the middle of a lot of contact in just 2 laps of attempted starts.
So this wall is incredibly busy here at Charlotte, because twice now we have seen contact coming into that wall. Tanner Faust, though, looking in a little bit of a hurry. So this is now a 4-lap race, and everyone will have to take the Joker at least once. So race duration is cut down. You still have to take the Joker. And unfortunately for Johnny Weeman, who had worked his way through to the front, he is now in that back row again. So he's going to have to fight his way through the traffic.
That's right. They re-rack here as we're on board with Isaksson. You see him put the car into gear. He's reaching down to turn the anti-lag system on. Going to build the revs, drag the clutch a little bit, get ready for launch.
Second heat launched again here at Charlotte. Another great start for Isaksson.
This time Tanner Faust squarely up the inside. Next to Austin Dine is Isaksson and his teammate Lasik. Lasik gets around the outside to go to the lead.
And Isaksson fully sideways there, coming around that corner. Johnny Weeman didn't get the start he did the last time. And look at this onboard from Isaksson at the back of the pack.
That big over rotation coming through turn 2 up on the dirt track oval. A huge penalty as Lasik's off into the wall. Both Subarus go from the front to the back.
But again, it looked like Tanner Faust leaned on Bucky Lasik and pushed him off the side of the track. And hopefully we'll get to see that again. But this means Tanner Faust gets to go through to the front of this heat.
Tess, I cannot believe that Tanner Faust is in the lead. His car has been through so much contact already. A huge hit with the hydro barrier earlier. You see all the damage to the right front, but nothing is slowing down that Volkswagen.
And look at the front of that machine. And we see a yellow flag flying. That's just a local yellow.
And Tanner Faust gets wide off of the jump, almost takes out the NBC camera. And he continues on in the lead, but Johnny Weeman is there, and unfortunate for Lasik, he is stuck in the tires, just getting going now, but he'll be a lap down.
Well, the question is whether the race officials will give any penalty to Tanner Faust, but you know, I guess maybe he'll be lucky again. Tanner Faust working his way to the white flag. Look at that car, it's just barely hanging on.
Luckily, most of the cooling is in the back and the sides of that Ford Fiesta as they come to the line for the white flag. And here goes Isaksson to the Joker, is going to make a pass on Austin Dine for that very important 3rd spot to transfer to the final.
Well, it's unfortunate that the Subarus looked so good right off the start, but they both have being shuffled back. Johnny Weeman, though, now is trying to hold off Sverre Isaksson. Remember, 3 transfer out of this heat, and that means right now Austin Dine is going to be the unlucky one. So here we go, coming into the finish, Tanner Faust limping his way through. Unbelievable that he could take the checkered flag in this heat.
And Austin Dine saves the Joker for last and just gets into Isaksson, spins him out at the finish line. Wow, what a race.
Just absolutely unbelievable racing here at Charlotte, but we got the entire heat in without red flags. Tanner Faust takes the second heat here at Charlotte. He will get to go through to the final, and I gotta tell you, his team has a lot of work to do to get that car ready. Come back and join us. Welcome back to Red Bull Global Rallycross Charlotte. Nelson Piquet Jr. getting ready for his last chance qualifier. And there are many ways that you at home can make your car similar to these high-performance GRC cars. For more on that, let's get into the zone with Kristen Kenny.
Here in Charlotte, these cars get hit with a lot of dirt. Only a third of this track is paved. Contaminants aren't good for the engine, so it's important for teams to have the right air filter. Right next to me, you can see Reese Millen's mechanic working away at swapping a new filter into his Hyundai Veloster. Now, it's an easy upgrade you can do to your car at home if you want to improve airflow and keep your engine clean. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Kristen, and always good to keep your car in tip-top shape. Look at this grid. Block, Arpin, Deegan, Faust, Weeman, and Isaksson already through to the final, so they get to rest while, well, the drivers coming up in the last chance qualifier. This is going to be a battle. 4 spots are up for grabs. Look at the front line here.
Yep, and you see Scott Speed in the middle, Piquet on the outside, and Austin Dine inside that front row, and then you see somebody missing in row 2. Unfortunately for Patrick Sandell, they are not able to make the repairs after that big impact into the hydro barrier. Really, really tough break for Sandell in the Lowe's car. He's going to miss a chance to advance to the final. Reese Millen, who had issues in the earlier heat, starts at the back of the row. Now, those Hyundais look pretty quick. Emma Gilmore had a nice run. We're on board here with Reese Millen. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get a good jump. I think they have the pace to transfer.
And the real question is, we've seen challenges in that first turn already. Does Millen just sit back and wait for the carnage to happen and then push his way through?
Well, if you were going off statistics, you'd have to say that laying back might be a good strategy. As we're on board here with Scott Speed, 10 seconds to go. And remember, top 4 advance, 2 will not make it.
So last chance qualifier. It goes red, goes off, goes green, and we are racing in Charlotte.
Very even start. They'll be 3 wide into the first corner. And Austin Dine, what a great carving line up the inside, has a nice gap. And look at Piquet on speed.
Oh, Piquet and Speed are number 1 and 2 in our points now. Look at Bucky Lasek, the gray and orange car. Lasek, we've seen, is really fast on the dirt. He's trying to poke his nose through there.
He currently sits in that 4th position, but he's got both of the Hyundais right behind him. As we see Piquet go long, and your top 2 take the Joker, as does Lasek. And I think that was Emma Gilmore further back.
So that allowed Lasek to go through into 3rd place. 4 will transfer through to the last chance qualifier. On board now with Scott Speed.
And Scott Speed knows he has the transfer into the main, but he'd like to get out of all of that dirt, get some clean visibility, and take this win. But Austin Dine doing a great job leading up front.
And we saw Dine sideways coming down this hill on his heat race where Tanner Faust had kind of parked him there. But Dine holding off Scott Speed. A great start from Austin Dine.
And Lasek starting to find that speed that we saw earlier, as we see Scott Speed go to the outside. White flag next time by, and Scott Speed looking at the inside of Austin Dine.
Oh, and he jumps over the inside there of the track and manages to hang on. He passes Austin Dine. What a phenomenal pass there from Scott Speed.
Really just set up Dine brilliantly. Now Dine's going to have to defend Lasek coming to the line. But Piquet saves the Joker. He could take the win. It's Piquet.
Gets it. Wow, what a move from
White
Nelson
flag,
Piquet
sorry,
Jr.
white flag, white flag.
Oh, wow, that was was a phenomenal move. He was patient. He hung on in that 4th position, was close enough to Bucky Lasek. And 1, 2, and 3 at that point were so close. And then he just threaded the needle underneath.
That was just pure genius from PK. And now look at the gap. Should have smooth sailing to the line as Dine is putting pressure back on Scott Speed for that 2nd spot. Bucky Lasek sits in the very important transfer spot in 4th. Except look at, is that Gilmore to the outside?
Oh,
no,
looks
it's
like
Reese
Millen.
Millen.
Just too much. He couldn't pull it out at the very end. Bucky Lasek will be our 4th and final transfer spot. And that means the 2 Hyundai Velosters of Reese Millen Racing will miss out on the final. But wow, that pass from PK Jr. was absolutely phenomenal. And that got him the win.
So well done. After all of the carnage and the red flags, we saw some brilliant driving. Let's go back to the pass for the lead from PK.
And check this out. He comes through to the white flag. PK Jr. takes the last chance qualifier. He will be in our final. Welcome back, everyone, to Red Bull Global Rallycross. You're looking at a picture of uptown Charlotte, North Carolina. Great place to stay. Coming up next, the Red Bull Signature Series takes you to the mountains of Austria for the toughest one-day race on 2 wheels. The Red Bull Hare Scramble is next on NBC. Fantastic race. You don't want to miss that. Here we are, Charlotte Motor Speedway. We are at the dirt track at Charlotte, and already been just an insanely exciting day. Here we are, the Royal Purple starting grid for our supercar final.
2 Fords on the front row, split by the Volkswagen at Tanner Faust. You got Ken Block, who had an awesome heat race. Steve Arpin with another great job as well. And that is row 1. Row 2, a lot of drama potentially back here. You've got the Metal Militia, Brian Deegan, Sverre Isaacson, who always seems to be in the center of some sort of controversy in GRC, and Johnny Weeman, who was strong in the heat.
Johnny Weeman really did look incredibly fast in the heat, but the big story, Scott Speed, Nelson Piquet Jr. on the back here. And remember, they are 1 and 2 in points, so there is a battle brewing here from the back. And Bucky Lasek, how unfortunate is Bucky Lasek? Lucky to be in the final, but man, he looked so good in his heat race before he got kind of pushed out the side.
He was very, very strong, and the Subarus are performing well as we're on board with Ken Block, who arguably has the fastest car out there, it seems, on the dirt right now, and he is loving life on a 70-30 dirt asphalt split.
And here is Sverre Isaacson, and Sverre is behind Block. Now, Ken Block has been pushed out at the start of so many finals when he has qualified #1. So he probably doesn't like the fact that so many fast guys are behind him. Speaking of fast, Nelson Piquet Jr., he just needs to get a good result. He's in the lead in our point series right now, but look at the traffic he's got to work through.
And he's really developed so quickly and brilliantly in GRC. His first season doing this, and that move he did in the heat race was unbelievable. Here we go.
And the lights are green. We are racing in Charlotte, our supercar final.
Oh, Deegan gets in the back of Arpin, and we see Johnny Weeman up the inside, and there's contact in the water barrier further back, but up front, it's banging and bumping.
And it looks like Nelson Piquet Jr. got parked there in the water barriers and then on the inside of the tires and somehow coming through. And I will be shocked if we do not red flag this. Piquet, the points leader there, into that first corner. He is parked in the hydro barriers.
And there you go. The red flag is out. Boy, Ken Block was driving, I think that was Tanner Faust, down to the tire barrier. Tanner trying to force the issue up the inside. And you see water again with those barriers in turn 1 destroyed yet again. Let's see the replay.
Too many cars, too little space.
PK, Scott Speed just squeezing into the inside line. PK has nowhere to go. And luckily, because of the earlier damage test, no water in those hydro barriers.
So we're going to have to restart this final. Will PK get back to the line? Find out when we come back to Red Bull Global Rallycross. Getting ready now for the restart of our supercar final after the little bit of carnage we saw in start #1.
Carnage has been the theme of the day. Here we see Ken Block in the lead, going for this right-hand corner. Tanner Faust nose up the inside, gets into the tires. And some big contact there, and that just seems to be the urgency test of getting to the groove. As we see a replay there, Tanner Faust getting all 4 wheels airborne off the impact. What I was going to say is, as the track is settling in, that groove is the only place to make lap time. And if you're outside, you're on the loose stuff, and it's not quick. So everybody's trying to get to that single line that's forming, and it's causing all kinds of issues.
There you're looking at Brian Deegan's Rockstar machine, and Deegan looked like he was having a pretty good start going through. Bucky Lasek sitting in the back. He now does not have Austin Dine in front, so he gets a cleaner shot through. You're on board there with Ken Block, then Sverre Isaksson. Block hoping for the same start he got last time.
Looks like a great start for everybody on the grid, all side by side in the same order. Steve Arpin gets wide. Ken Block off to a clean start, but Tanner Faust has a run, gets clipped by Deegan.
And Stan manages to save it. That was absolutely unbelievable. He was fully sideways, turned it back where he wanted it to go, and Tanner Faust saved it.
And Sverre Isaksson getting turned by Johnny Weeman, but as Isaksson has done all season long, when he's sideways, he never lifts. He just drives the throttle to the floor, and the 4-wheel drive straightens him out.
600 horsepower delivered to all 4 wheels. That's why they can pull these things straight when it seems almost impossible. Ken Block, though, has a great run off the front.
And look at Tanner up high on the cushion, kind of squaring off the exit of that corner as Scott Speed is working his way for 3rd position, currently following with Johnny Weeman. On board right now with Scott Speed.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing turn up. He came from the 3rd row. He's now sitting in 3rd place. So Scott Speed finding his way through all of the mess of cars getting turned sideways.
And look at the issues with visibility. The dust is growing ever so much each lap. And look at Johnny Weeman gets to the outside of Tanner Faust for 2nd. And now Scott Speed's coming up on his teammate Faust. We understand Faust might have a problem, perhaps from that earlier contact into the tires on the first attempted start.
And you can see the front of Tanner Faust's car is all taped up. He looks like he really has had a hard run of it here. We certainly saw that in the last chance qualifier. Speed going through.
Scott Speed to the inside, and now Isaksson passing Faust. So Faust is dropping down through the order. As we see Isaksson taking the Joker there. Now Isaksson all over the back of Weeman. And PK getting back through the field. PK around Faust.
Oh, there you saw contact between Weeman and Isaksson. Isaksson goes through and he takes over the place from Johnny Weeman.
And we understand Tanner has a flat left front tire. Been a big issue with all the rutting. The tires have been de-beating off of the rim. And so Tanner Faust's car is wounded.
So Tanner Faust took the win in New York last week. He won't get a repeat here in Charlotte. Look at this battle for 2nd place. Sverre Isaksson, Johnny Weeman, and Scott Speed.
And Scott Speed in that green 7-Up car, he's thinking points. He can see big points gains in front of him, but he's got Nelson Piquet Jr., the points leader, right behind him.
In car from Scott Speed, and I think he's just letting Isaksson and Johnny Weeman battle this thing out and wait for a chance to go through when they make the mistake. Meanwhile, Ken Block, clean air. He is having just the greatest day here in Charlotte. Look at the margin between him and Sverre Isaksson in 2nd.
It is massive, and there's such a benefit of being out in clean air with great visibilities. We're back on board with Scott Speed, working hard on Weeman. He's got a little run to the inside here. He's got a nose up, gives him a little love tap there, pushes Weeman wide. Now this right-hand kink is where a lot of issues have hit. I don't know how Scott Speed sees. Look at the dirt and the dust in the windshield.
And look at how hard he is working that wheel, because when you come off the dirt and onto that tarmac, it is so slick, you're literally sliding back and forth. Sverre Isaksson, though, is starting to make up a little bit of that gap from himself to Ken Block.
All new suspension on that Subaru for this weekend as we're back on board with Ken Block.
You can see him working that wheel.
And we know how much he loves being back on a track that's all dirty. It's such a great heat race. And normally struggled off the line on a lot of these GRC races on the start. Usually a lot of contact this year, but that Ford Fiesta is looking clean. Mud flap flapping in the wind, but everything else is intact.
Otherwise, he is absolutely hitting his mark. Sverre Isaksson coming through 2nd. That battle was still happening. Whoa. Oh, look at that. Nelson Piquet Jr. comes through to take 3rd place from Johnny Weeman.
Nelson Piquet left the Joker for late. He did the same thing in the heat race brilliantly and just nailed it again. What an incredible use of timing and technique to pass, I think, 2 cars in the Joker.
So Nelson Piquet, our Tour points leader, makes just the perfect move at the right time. You can see a little bit of smoke coming from the left front of Scott Speed, probably rubbing there on that loose plastic.
I wasn't sure if that's tire rub or if that's something else causing the issue to the left front of Scott Speed, but we're back on board with Sverre Isaksson. White flag will come next time by.
And the dust on this track is making it incredibly difficult to see, especially when you're in traffic. Luckily, no problem there for Ken Block, who is working his way back on this track and will come up to the white flag, signaling the final lap of our Red Bull Global Rallycross race here in Charlotte. And it looks like Ken Block is going to be victorious today. He just has to ride smooth around this lap.
And now Scott Speed is under pressure from Bucky Lasek, who is all over the back of his Volkswagen. And look at this up front, Ken Block, a clean windshield, no dust to deal with. And this is the kind of run that we've expected out of Ken Block, and I'm sure he's thrilled with the pace of his car.
Ken Block jumps back into the dirt track. He has one more corner left to negotiate. He goes by, it doesn't matter. Ken Block wins in Charlotte.
And that was a signature slide from Ken Block. That was not a mistake in that final corner. He is all about the show. And we watch the rest of the finishers come to the line. Scott Speed just holds off Bucky Lasek.
Well, a great win here in Charlotte for Ken Block. Great racing all around. We'll come back and join Ken Block after the commercial. Welcome back to Red Bull Global Rallycross. Earlier today in our lights race, Mitchell de Jong took the win.
Such an impressive young driver. That was Mitchell's 3rd win on the season. With results like that, he'll be looking to move up to the supercars category. But today, it was all about Ken Block at the front as he burns up that car at the finish. And of course, Piquet Jr., what an amazing job on the Joker to pass 2 cars and take the final podium spot.
Block gets the win, and he is down with Kristen Kenny.
Ken, this is your first win of the season. What got you here today?
Yeah, well, all my years and years of stage rally on gravel experience got me here. So, oh man, I'm stoked. That was a lot of work, but I led almost every lap of this event that I was in, so I'm really stoked. It was a lot of fun. Stoked to have a good battle. Crazy, crazy day. So, man, I'm stoked. Good job.
Woo! And with that win, Ken Block moves up 1 place to 5th in the points.
But look at Nelson Piquet Jr. extends his championship points lead. No wins on the season, but he's been strong in every round.
Absolutely fantastic late race pass for Piquet Jr. to move him up. Well, next, the Red Bull Signature Series takes you to the mountains of Austria for the toughest one-day race on 2 wheels, the Red Bull Hare Scramble. And for us, well, be sure to join us August 23 from Daytona for more Red Bull Global Rallycross. An awesome day in Charlotte. For Townsend Bell and Kristen Kenny, this is Tess Sewell saying thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.